The Topiary Cat, Chapter 4. Clever Tolly. It was a little while before Richard remembered his disturbing adventure with Tolly at the gazebo by the lake. Perhaps he had imagined it all, being caused by the start of his illness. After all, he had a similarly worrying dream when his fever took hold. He determined to try and forget about it, though the memory of his troubled companion trembling in his arms was harder to dismiss. Being only 9.5 years old, such things don't bother children of that age for long. Soon he was out and about with Tolly, hiding under his newly sculpted yew hedge and having exciting adventures, as if nothing had happened. It wasn't until they revisited the lake one afternoon after school that the bothersome memory returned unbidden. Tolly looked a bit nervous too, so they stayed away from the statue and the gazebo, and wandered over to the formal rose gardens with their immaculately trimmed box hedges that bordered the flower beds. Marble statues of Greek, Roman and Egyptian gods were dotted around, and box pyramids punctuated the low borders. When they were wandering along the paths, they noticed a problem with the neat box hedging. It was covered in brown and bare patches. Tolly sniffed suspiciously at the sad-looking bushes, and his hackles raised. This wasn't right. Richard looked at the statue of Rodin's thinker and sensed that it was pondering the problem. Even the statue of Hermes had a worried expression, whilst Aphrodite looked positively alarmed. Is the garden dying? Is that what Leda was trying to tell Tolly that day by the lake? Grandpa was working on the huge greenhouse in the grounds that day, so Richard headed in that direction, Tolly dutifully trotting alongside. There, Baba was tending a raised bed full of young plants. "Hello, young Richard. And Tolly, too. What brings you here?" "We've seen the bushes in the rose garden, and they look sick. Have you seen them?" "Yes, indeed. I'm afraid it is Block's blight. But it doesn't kill the plants, and I have my team ready to cut out the affected areas. Don't worry, they will grow back." At this, Tolly became distressed and began to meow piteously. You know that saying, "He understands every word you say"? Well, that's what it seemed to Richard and Baba. The distressed cat seemed to be trying to lead them back to the hedging, tugging at Richard's shoelaces and pulling him back to where they were by the rose beds. This strange behaviour prompted the pair to follow the agitated animal to where he was leading them. Back by the box hedge, Tolly's nose pointed to something that the gardeners had missed before. It was a caterpillar, greenish-yellow with a black head. "Tolly, you clever kitty," said Grandpa. "Earlier I had assumed it was box blight, but now I see it is box tree caterpillar. We shouldn't get this pest here. It comes in from imported plants, and I know better to bring them into our gardens. It must have been brought in with the last batch of young box plants that came in. We will have to pick them all off by hand." "Why don't you just spray them, Baba?" "I don't want to spray insecticide. It might kill insects we do need." "Thank you so much, Tolly. How on earth did you know?" "I think I know, Baba. But if I told you, you wouldn't believe me." Richard smiled to himself. Richard imagined that he had discovered the mysterious link between this miraculous cat and the statues, for he thought that was how Tolly knew about the problem of the dying box plants. However, that night, lying in bed pondering the day's events, he began to doubt himself. Tolly had been seriously upset, shivering with what appeared to be fear after the statue confronted him. Surely a sickly plant would not have made him so fearful, would it? Don't miss the next chapter of The Topiary Cat, read by Richard Saunders.